Welcome to Let's Talk Health, powered by VitifyHealth. I'm your host, Miles Wingfield. Today, we're joined by a mission-driven leader whose career has been shaped by resilience, global perspective, and a deep commitment to advancing clinical research. After immigrating from Cameroon, he built a decade-long career leading trials across oncology, cardiology, and rare diseases. He's also a trusted career coach and mentor, having helped hundreds of professionals break into the grow within the clinical research field. He's worked as a trial manager, site director, public voice on LinkedIn, and most notably a father. Please welcome Rudy Malle. Rudy, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Miles. Doing well. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak to your community.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So let's get straight into it. So first thing I really wanted to ask you was you've had a dynamic journey in clinical research, starting as a clinical research coordinator and growing into leadership roles like site director and trial manager. What initially drew you into the world of clinical trials?
I'd say that everybody kind of have a story in clinical research, and I feel like nobody. I think about 10 years ago, clinical research wasn't very popular. But right now it's becoming a career. Really becoming a career path. There's colleges having clinical research as a whole career curriculum. But what drew into clinical research was the desire for knowledge. Firstly, the desire for knowledge because I had a sick family member. My uncle was
Mhm.
diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal. Nobody knew about what he was going through until when he was near death, which he finally passed away a couple of years ago. But that kind of sparked my curiosity. I was interested to know why, what kind of treatment can he get, what kind of options are available. So that's what kind of pushed me into clinical research, and I'm excited with the journey that I've taken so far, and not just myself, but helping multiple career professionals as well break into clinical research.
Right, it's such an impactful field, and thank you for sharing that story with us. So, another thing I've seen for that you speak about a lot is how misallocated budgets in clinical trials can negatively impact patient retention, and obviously the patient is right the most important part of the clinical research. So, can you walk us through how better financial planning can actually improve participant experience and retention rates?
Yeah, I think because one of the most important things that I see a lot in the industry is that we kind of neglect everybody. The sponsors, the sponsor and the site kind of work together on on the budget, but nobody considers the patient, right? Nobody considers the burden that lies on the patient. As a matter of fact, I had a workshop a couple of weeks about last week, a couple of weeks ago. We talked about the patient burden, how the kind of the burden that patients face when they enroll to clinical trials. They have to miss if or think about it, a single mom, right? Who miss their doctor's appointment, they are sacrificing daycare, they're doing paying toll, lunch, all of these hotels. They have to pay all of these other bills in order to come to a
Right.
visit, and the sponsor only gives them what, $30 stipend to pay for what? Is that a ticket? Is that for a meal? So we don't kind of we miss the point of allocating the right patient burden funds to allocate for that. So I see that as something that's happened in the industry, and I speak more about it to provide sensitization to make sure that when sponsors are writing this budget and the contracts and the site are also signing off on them, that really understand that there's a patient at the end of that tunnel. There's somebody called in that tunnel, the person who has a life, who has a mom, it's a dad, it's a parent, it's a child, who is at the end of the tunnel, who is understanding, not just providing the data, but more so understanding that they have a life outside of that clinical trial, and their participation in clinical trial, yes, is helping them get it, perhaps a better health, but also they're doing good for the trial by providing their data. So it's just fair for us to treat them right, compensate them accurately, not to buy their time or buy it or coerce them into clinical trials, but more so really understand the sacrifice that they're making in order for them to participate in the clinical trial and stay engaged as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, you believe more in, I guess, personalized incentives for clinical trials, or do you think that we just have to increase the amount of money that we're giving to people?
It's so funny. It's a good question because there is a tool that a buddy of mine actually, they created a tool. They're based in the Netherlands. It's called, I can share the link with you at the end of at the end of the day, so you can share it with your audience. So
Okay.
clinical trial budding link, where there's a lot of factors that come into. Of course, two patients are not going to be able to earn to have the same. Two studies are not going to be able to have the same compensation or the same stipend, right? So we're looking at the form. It has a combination of therapeutic experience, therapeutic area, phases, if it's an invasive study or non-invasive drug or device. There's a bunch of different criteria that goes into that. Then At the end of the day, it gives you a number. It gives a number which is like, for example, gives like $2,500, right? Which means for you to adequately address a patient's burden and patient responsibility and patient commitment to the study, $2,500 is more adequate, more accurate to kind of compensate for the time loss, the wage loss, because the patient going to come into a visit who is working, they're going to miss that day of work, right?
Right.
Think about an oncology patient who comes in for a 2 hour, 3 hour treatment. They're going to
Right.
miss that day of work, coming to the study, be on the study site, another visit to get $25 stipend, which doesn't make anything,
Doesn't make any
you
sense at
know?
all. That no, I think that's a really good point. Kind of to shift the conversation more to from the patient to more those who are conducting the clinical research. You all recently shared thoughts on transitioning from academia into clinical research. So for someone contemplating that move, what mindset or first steps would you recommend to make that pivot successful?
I've seen this a lot. People, especially I wrote a piece this morning about PhDs. As a matter of fact, I
Mhm.
said a lot of PhDs who are in academia and want to move into clinical research. Now, there's a gap because academia is mostly focused on they either bench science, it's a combination of two. Either they're doing bench science or they're doing um, more like health, population health,
Mhm.
right? More like non-invasive. So they don't have any patient contact. They haven't had a patient interaction, that patient contact. So I would say if you're academia wanting to break into clinical research, now GCP, good clinical practice trainings out there available online, sometimes free. They have
Mhm.
citytrain.com that usually provide that. But I would say do more than that, right? Right now the job market is tight. Getting a GCP training and applying for jobs and hoping that something happens is not the best strategy. Get right.
Right.
Get
Makes a lot of
help.
sense.
Get a coach. Get there are multiple courses on Udemy and other platforms. Go in there, learn a skill, get some skills, get some additional skills. Because now we're going academia is different because when we come to the industry, there's a bunch of things. We're looking at operational stuff, right? If you're a PhD, you want to go to MSL, you want to study what are the MSLs doing, communication skills, budget and finance, contracting, engagement with key opinion leaders. Those are all different
Mhm.
kind of things that you want to look into. There's a bunch of free courses. I mean, on low courses on Udemy, and of course, there are coaches like myself and many others on LinkedIn who are available who coach people transitioning from academia to different parts of clinical research that you can always contact for support.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, there's so many different moving parts within clinical research that you might not even think of until you're actually conducting the trials, right? So,
Oh, absolutely.
um, and as I mentioned to you, I think in our prior meeting that my company actually we use AI to automate a lot of the patient recruitment, right?
Yeah.
And with AI becoming more integrated into our lives, how is it currently being applied in clinical trials, and what role do you see it playing over the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
I love that because there's a I think either John Hopkins or a couple of other colleges are now integrating clinical research, AI, clinical research, AI, biotech, pharma, something like that. They have a bunch of courses and they trying to play around the word of AI.
Hmm.
To your question, I really think that AI is definitely changing. It's definitely going to keep changed. It's going to enhance, help us with not just patient recruitment, but engagement. Because one of the biggest challenges in clinical research is not just to enroll the patient, but to keep them engaged throughout the lifetime of the study, right?
Hmm.
AI is definitely going to help us to include that. AI is also definitely helping us to write protocols. As a matter of fact, I went to a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they introduced a concept that said, "Oh, has FDA started approving AI written protocols?" I'm like, "That's not interesting."
Right.
I mean, that's like a long shot, but I think it's very possible because
Hmm.
AI will definitely write a draft protocol, a well-written draft protocol for you if you know, because again, AI is a lot of buzzwords, but it comes down to prompt engineering. Like whatever you tell AI to write, that's what it's going to generate for you. Right.
Right.
So knowing the right words, knowing what to say to an AI is going to create those protocols. I think it's gonna help with protocol writing, medical writing, script writing, and preparation for clinical study reports at the end of the study. The data analytics is also going to help us with patient engagement. So a whole bunch of things. But again, I think it comes down to us as professionals starting to understand the use of AI, understand how we can better use them and integrate it into our practice and processes to make sure that I know people always say, "Oh, is AI going to replace my jobs? AI going to do all this stuff, right?" Well, AI will only replace the job of those who are not you, who don't like who who are not interested to advance their skills to know how to use AI.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I think from what I've seen is again me being very new to this clinical space, but even just in general, seeing the AI take over is really interesting. Another thing I really wanted to ask you about was, I guess, given your firsthand experience across multiple roles in the trial ecosystem, again, you being come kind of climbing the ladder of the research industry, how has that shaped the way you approach trial design, operations, or even site leadership as you see it today?
I'd say that I always love, I usually say, people always, might, when I speak to professionals, they always think about, prior to learning more about what clinical research is all about, they always think about the job of a CRA. It's like an entry level position. They always thought about it like a CRA is an entry level position, it's a clinical research associate, but it's not, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that if you begin your career at a site as a coordinator, as a clinical research assistant, for me personally, it's been a humbling experience, but also a very good eye-opening experience because I believe that if you are a good CRA was a coordinator, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
were a coordinator at a site, it would make you better CRA because you understand from a site perspective what's going on at the site, how do the patients behave, how a coordinator is struggling, the challenges they face, and how to encourage them for patient enrollment, like operational aspects as well, budget and finance and all that stuff. So it's really helps. So I would say that it's a good thing to begin your career at the site level and grow. Now, there's always a gap because we always think about if I'm going at a site, maybe I need to move to CRO. Well, you really don't have to move to CRO, right? It's a matter of choice. There are sites that have a good career pathway. For example, if you move to an academic center will have multiple pathways. You can begin as a clinical research coordinator. In 5 years, you're a site director or a site manager, or in the next 7 years, you're a site director. Next 5 years, you're a VP. Yeah. So you can stay at the site and just grow your career throughout that. Or if you want to branch to pharma is tough, but it is possible, right? What I always say, pharmaceutical companies always feel like I don't want to have somebody who's coming from the site. We want to have somebody who has a CRO experience. But I'm asking the question, if you're looking for somebody who has a CR experience, who has been at the site, that person at the site is the best person that can actually understand the site perspective,
Right.
understand patient interaction, understand how to interact with the PIs, and they'll be the best candidate for your team.
That makes a lot of sense. That's, I guess, just having that foundational perspective just could make you better at anything in life, not even just in clinical trials.
Absolutely.
And I like to finish off each episode with more, I guess, a more lighthearted question. Just get
Yeah.
away from all the everything else. So
The technical stuff.
exactly right. Just leave with a smile. So, as an immigrant from Cameroon, what was the most culture thought shocking thing about America when you first got here?
You know what? It's so interesting because when I first got here, I was like, um, in Cameroon, I was just a normal person. Like I was just
Hmm.
a normal everyday person. But when I came to the US, I was now a black person. Right?
Right.
So I was just like, I never thought about the skin color of myself in Cameroon, but in the US, I could see the difference. And it's so fun because now another thing which kind of goes back a little bit on the career path is that I wasn't a science major or science or clinical
Hmm.
major I was a business major. I did business. Upon graduation, I was a marketing manager for a tech company, and then voila, I'm in America doing clinical research. But what I did, in summary, what I came to realize is everything is possible, right?
Hmm.
Everything is possible. You put your mind to it. It's possible. I made a big switch, and this is me today being, a voice in clinical research, which I was my wildest imagination. Was never in my wildest imagination. And this is me doing something that I never even thought about. And it's possible. So I always think about America as a place of possibilities. Everything is possible, you put your mind to it. So that was a big shift for me, and it's just stuck with me.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, I think that's all the time we have left. Thank you, Rudy.
I appreciate it,
And so,
Miles.
yeah, so well, ladies and gentlemen, that has been Let's Talk Health, powered by Vitify Health. And if you're interested in learning more about Rudy Malle and his impactful work and the work that we do here at Vitify Health, feel free to check us out in the links in the description. And thank you, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Rudy.
I appreciate it. Speak soon.